What does the Inside Bureau specialize in? What kind of speakers?
So we've always been around economics and business, essentially. So what that really means is economics, politics, strategy, leadership, technology, innovation.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. And some marketing and other things.
It's very broad.
Well, it kind of is, but it doesn't include performance people, mountain climbers, rock stars, celebrities. Yeah, it doesn't.
So there's still a niche that you're dominating.
Yeah.
Because you're operating out of Singapore, even though you are operating out of Singapore, when I go to your website, it's very international.
Sure.
Of course, you would have slightly more Asian faces than, say, the other bureaus.
So about 60% of our speakers are based in the region, but of those, some are Asians and some are actually Brits or Americans or others. But
Asians are not known to be vocal or great speakers. You have some incredible speakers.
Yes.
How do you identify them?
So if it's down to me taking a look, clearly if they can't impress me within the first 10 or 15 seconds of speaking, then it's going to be...
say 10 or 15 minutes.
No.
Geez, you're harsh.
Hey, you see, if you go for a job interview, they say that you make the first impression is the first few minutes of your job interview. So it is very much like that. People's
and the audience judges you the same as well. 10, 15 seconds, they decide whether or not.
Exactly. So it is brutal. Yes, of course. And I think so look, I'm looking for people who are going to have an impact. I'll back up a little bit and tell you about the 6 things that I think make a good speaker.
It's down to
because then you'll understand what I'm saying. First of all, people have to know their stuff. Right? You've got to have people who have really got some content to share. Secondly, they've got to be good communicators. Now, so far, those 2 things are very obvious. It's kind of duh, well, of course, right? So you've got to know your stuff and you've got to be able to be a good speaker. But then thirdly, a little bit more nuanced, is about, are you able to pitch what you're saying to the right level for the audience or the people that are going to be listening?
So it's matchmaking.
Yeah, so it has to be, appropriate. Fourthly, I would say, you've got to have have some kind of passion. You've got to be authentic. Believe in what you're talking about, because otherwise, just speaking without the passion is just somehow lacks.
So it's a whole package of having that reputation.
Yeah.
Even better having your own blog, your own website, your own community.
Yeah.
Books.
Yeah. But I would also say the most important thing is you've got to be somewhat unique.
Right.
So nobody buys
A me-too
abundant,
product.
right? People buy into scarcity, something that's unusual, different, unique. And finally, I would say memorable. So you add all of those things in, have good knowledge to share, be able to speak, pitch in the right way, be authentic, be original, and be memorable.
Just
so in a nutshell, that's what it's all about. So in fast time, if someone clearly knows what they're talking about, is a good communicator, they've got my attention. If they're pitching to me, I'm going to listen. If they seem to really believe and be passionate about what they're talking about, I'm even more interested. No one else has said this, I'm learning something new. I'm going to take it away with me to empower me as a person or as a manager of a company. Then that's an impactful speaker.
Is it more difficult to find these qualities in the Asian community than in performing art is not necessarily our strength?
This is a question I grapple with a lot, because when you take those 6 things, if that's the world according to Andrew Line anyway, right? If you take those 6 things, there are many Asian speakers who've got lots of ticks in those boxes, but somehow
what's lacking?
I don't know. It's the ability to communicate in quite the right way. Maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's a language thing in an audience that's not quite.
Well, we're not selling ourselves enough.
Well, it's possible. It may be simply.
Look at the Americans. They are just the best self-promoters.
but overly confident. If you look draw a line, a graph of confidence, well, I think it is linked.
I'm content that some of the substance from some Asian speakers are no less impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? This part of the world is becoming more and more and more significant. What is happening in Asia, people need to be listening to, watching and following.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Asian century by far.
The crazy rich Asian century.
If you want to call it.
You're living in the epicenter of it all.
So, no, and I think it is. I think it's a process. I think it's a matter of time.
Who are your top 3 go-to Asian speakers? Yeah, that is on your portfolio, that you're happy, and you could just go, hey, I'll give them a job anytime.
Who are Asian?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about one already, Aisha Khanna, but she's
a husband.
And a husband,
Thailand,
of course. But Aisha is originally from Pakistan, and she grew up in America, and that's maybe a big factor. So she's fabulous, but she's also unique because she's an Asian woman speaker talking in tech.
She can switch into the Singapore accent.
Right. So how many women in tech? How many Asian women in tech? How many?
So you really narrow it down into.
So she's quite unique, and she's really punching above her weight. She really is making a big impact. Her husband is more on the geostrategy side of things, thinking about the future of the world. His book is coming out. He's an author. And really thinking about the big forces that are changing the world. They have decided to live in Singapore, and are both Singaporeans now, because this is going to be the place where they can have a big impact.
Just wondering, there's not too many much celebrated author or speakers from this region. I mean, if you have listened to Aisha Khanna speak, she's as good. You can put her anywhere in the world.
Yes, and I think
what's the missing ingredient?
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of celebrated authors have typically come from
the West.
Does it really need to be that way? Is it just their ability to cultivate their brands?
Jack Ma is the only exception.
Yes, but even then he's different because he's not a professional speaker. He's someone who's created an amazing business and then talks about that.
He ticks all your boxes?
Well, he would in many ways. You see, in our world, we work with people who are either professional speakers or what I call semi-professional speakers. So the difference is the professional speaker has whatever they've done in the past, they've now decided that they are going to get the majority of their revenue from speaking. That's what they now do.
Is this the world for older people? Do young people stand a chance? I know Aisha Khanna is an exception.
I think that often we joke and say that when you buy a speaker for an hour, you're not buying the hour, you're buying the 30 years that it's taken them to get to where they are. So to a degree, I think that often, yes, it's having the ability to draw upon a lifetime of experience. If some people would like to hire former prime ministers because it's having been in the seat of real power that people are kind of intrigued and like to hear. But you don't get
ruling power.
But you have to be, young people don't get to be presidents and prime ministers. But these days, I think in the new technology world that we're living in, there's plenty of people doing really remarkable things, and they're under 30, and absolutely, why not? Why can they not, have good ideas that are worth sharing in TED Talk, right? Why can't they? Absolutely.
But I don't see too many on your website or any.
Well, there are a few, but I think that for one reason, much of my work is in the area of economics and politics, so that's kind of more traditional. But the more, as you see over time, the more we work in the area of technology and innovation and those topics, I think you'll see some more.
one thing that I'm most intrigued of is doing what you do, you are rubbing shoulders, you're interacting with some of the brightest minds. Yeah. What do you learn from them? Is there any commonalities?
I wish I could spend more time just listening and learning from them. I'm immersed by all these wonderful people,
Yeah.
but I have a job to do, and unfortunately,
it's part of your job, sir.
I know. It's almost like I'm being surrounded by these people. I kind of learn some things by osmosis, perhaps. I'd like to think so. But there are people. One of my best speakers, who's based in Singapore here, the most prolific speaker of the Insight Bureau, is a guy called Frederick Heron. Frederick's a Swede, and he talks about creativity and ideas generation, and how to be an innovative person, how to be ready to take on all the turmoil and disruption that we're going to face in this world. And, I've listened to him speak, and it's always a pleasure to do so. But I really take things away from what he's been talking about. These are things, like I say, the memorable things that you take away that change your life.
And there are free one-on-one time.
Yeah. So I can relate to that, and there are certainly things that I can learn. But the world is full of different people with different needs. It doesn't make the economist person any less valuable, because if you're in the banking or investing world, maybe that's what you really need to know.
Right.
That's what's going to inspire you to make the next good decision. You also have to remember as well, in our world, there are very much two worlds in the speaking world, right? There's the external world and the internal world, what I like to call the look smart world, or the think smart world, and the act smart world, right? And so the world of conferences and customer events and conventions. This is verging on, everything is a combination of content and entertainment.
Yeah, showmanship.
Right. Well, yes, exactly. No, at the end of the day, when you speak, there's an element of content and entertainment or showmanship, right? And it's like, where on that spectrum do you need the speaker to be? There are times where it really needs to be, it's all about the content. Right. And other times where it's all about having a good time and entertaining and making people laugh or inspiring them. The look smart world, as I say, of conferences and events is much more important to have that element of showmanship. But there are plenty of things going on that companies are organising, because it's hard-nosed decision making that they need. And so the showmanship doesn't matter, it's the content that matters more. So there's all kinds of flavours of speakers, from what they talk about to how they need to convey their insights. Sometimes it's hard decision making, sometimes it's about developing the people in the organisation, sometimes it's about sharing insights that are going to help people do better business and make their clients feel that they're adding more value. Or it could be the combination of a whole industry coming together at a convention, where they're sparking off the latest new thoughts, the industry trends and things like that. So such a spectrum of things you have potentially to talk about, industry trends and things like that. So such a spectrum of things you have potentially to talk about.
You have even though you mentioned that you have a niche that you are serving, but it's still a very wide spectrum.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with, how do you get a meaningful conversation with all these people that you are representing? You must be very widely read, or?
I think that I like to say that there's a lot more to this than simply a booking service. A speaker bureau, at its rawest, basic level, is a booking service. But I think to be successful, you've got to have an understanding that goes much further. Now, of course, it helps that I spent 13 years at the Economist Group in a business development and an event development role. So I have always been interested and aware of all these topics. So I can have those conversations with speakers and clients to make that kind of matching service. I mean, I have to say that 90-something% of the time, we end up having made a really good choice. And I say we, I mean with the client. This isn't about us pushing speakers. It's about having a conversation and saying, okay, what is it you want to achieve? What's important for you to get out of this session? What are your customers or your audience? What do they need? Let me put my proposal together. I've got a couple of ideas, but don't just take my word for it. I've got testimonials, you can see video, you can even talk to them on the phone, so that you manage the risk down. As one of my clients once said to me, the wonderful thing about conferences is that every single time it's really an exercise in risk management. There's so many things that can go wrong, and even that one thing, like the speaker, it's like, are we going to, it would be worse to put a bad speaker in front of your clients than to not have any.
So it sounds like you've made a few mistakes that you've learned from.
You always learn from mistakes. I mean, some of them are things to do with making choices and make you a little bit more skilled the next time. You learn to ask the right questions, you have the right conversations. I have to say the thing that I find most difficult is when someone says to me, oh, we have this event, it's on this date, we just need some ideas. Just send us some ideas. And I think, well, if you just want ideas, why don't you just go to the website, and then you let me know, tell me more. What is this all about? Who is your audience? And then I can start to have a consultative process. Right? Or my team, are very good, but they need something to work with. Right? You need something to be able to say, okay, I can give you some advice. Because otherwise it is very much that arm's length booking service. And that's not, it doesn't always work.
And they don't need you if that's the case. Yeah. Andrew, it sounds like being organized is one of the very important tool or characteristic of being a great, doing great at what you're doing.
Well, I don't really think about it too much. I mean, we have systems in place. I have a 6-stage process that we're going through. First is the kind of the acquisition stage. We're kind of, acquiring the right talent to be able to put in front of customers. Secondly, we're having the briefing process, and this is what I keep going back to. The times where we haven't been successful is where we haven't had a good briefing, or where the customer hasn't really opened up to us in terms of what they want.
So it's very much a brick and mortar, despite having that website presence. Yeah.
Then there's the consultative process. It's not them and us. It's not a sales thing. We're going to push speakers. It's about getting a win-win. Then there's the working on the delivery of how this thing is going to work, the execution phase. And then we try and learn every single time from what we've done by having good follow-up as well. So what worked, what didn't, so if we're going to work together next time, what do we need to learn?
Yeah, I received a lot of feedback form that I have to fill out after the conference.
Oh, that's right. Well, that's right, because at the end of the day, it's not about making the speaker feel good, it's about us growing in our confidence that we've made the right decisions, that the speaker was appropriate. If there's things about, the way they handle Q&A or their PowerPoint presentation or any things that we can give feedback, that's a learning process that everyone wants to go through.
What?